Let me start with a question. Have you ever met a woman who walks through storms and doesn't flinch? The kind of woman who, even when the world shakes around her, somehow stays unshaken inside. You can feel it, her peace, her presence, her power. She doesn't fight for attention. She doesn't chase validation because she knows who she is. That woman isn't loud. She isn't perfect, but she's spiritually untouchable. And the truth is, it's not magic, it's not luck. It's built on a set of habits. Quiet, consistent choices that shape her soul into something unshakable. So today, I want to share 6 hidden habits that turn ordinary women into extraordinary spiritual forces. Habits that can make you untouchable. Not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. A spiritually untouchable woman guards her peace like a treasure. Not everyone gets access to her energy. Not every conversation deserves a response. It's not about isolation, it's about boundaries. There comes a point in life when you realize peace is not something you stumble upon. It's something you protect, like a fragile flame in the wind. The world around you will always demand more of you. More attention, more energy, more reaction. People will misunderstand you, test your patience, and even drain your spirit without meaning to. But the women who stay strong, the ones who remain grounded in a chaotic world, are the ones who learn the art of guarding their peace ruthlessly. To protect your peace doesn't mean you cut yourself off from people. It means you become intentional about where you place your heart. It's the awareness that not everyone deserves access to your inner world. It's knowing when to walk away, when to pause, when to say no, and when to let silence speak for you. Because sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. We live in a culture that glorifies business. You're praised for being everywhere, doing everything, and pleasing everyone. But when you chase that kind of approval, you slowly lose the calm that makes you whole. You begin to measure your worth by how much you give away instead of how much peace you keep inside. Protecting your peace is not selfish, it's sacred. It's choosing to water your own soul before pouring into others. Think about the moments when you felt completely drained. Maybe it was after a conversation that left you uneasy or a situation that kept replaying in your mind long after it ended. That's your spirit telling you that something crossed a boundary. And the truth is, if you don't set those boundaries for yourself, the world will cross them for you. Every time you allow chaos into your space, you trade a piece of your calm for someone else's comfort. The women who live with real strength are not the loudest or the toughest. They're the ones who have learned to master stillness. They've learned that walking away from certain people or situations is not weakness, it's wisdom. Because peace is the soil where clarity grows. When your mind is calm, your decisions are clear. When your emotions are steady, your vision becomes sharper. You stop reacting from pain and start responding from purpose. In life, protecting your peace will require courage. It will mean saying no when saying yes feels easier. It will mean creating distance from relationships that no longer grow you. It might even mean disappointing people who expect you to always be available. But peace is not the absence of noise. It's the strength to remain calm in the middle of it. You can't change what others bring into your life, but you can choose how long it stays there. One of the most freeing lessons you'll ever learn is that not everything deserves your reaction. The moment you stop defending every opinion, correcting every misunderstanding, or proving your point in every argument, you reclaim your energy. You begin to realize that peace is power. When you stay calm in chaos, you disarm it. The noise loses its hold over you because your stability becomes your greatest defense. There's a story I once heard about a woman who worked in a toxic environment. Every day she came home exhausted, not because of the workload, but because of the emotional weight she carried from her coworkers' negativity. One day, she decided to change her approach. She stopped engaging in gossip, stopped taking things personally, and started focusing on what she could control. Within weeks, her energy shifted. The same environment that once drained her no longer held power over her. What changed wasn't her surroundings. It was her boundaries. Peace doesn't come from perfect circumstances. It comes from discipline. It's a daily practice. It's choosing to start your morning without rushing into the noise of the world. It's taking time to breathe, to pray, to be still. It's limiting your exposure to things that disturb your spirit. Whether that's social media, unhealthy relationships, or self-criticism. Protecting your peace means you decide what deserves space in your mind and heart. And here's the beautiful part. When you protect your peace, everything else in your life begins to align. Your thoughts become clearer. Your relationships become healthier. Your purpose becomes stronger. Because peace gives you perspective. It reminds you that not every battle is yours to fight, and not every comment is yours to answer. You learn to rise above instead of sink into the chaos. A woman who protects her peace becomes untouchable, not because she avoids challenges, but because she faces them with composure. Her calm is not a sign of indifference. It's a sign of mastery. She doesn't let the world dictate her mood or her worth. She's anchored from within. That's the kind of peace worth protecting. The kind that makes you gentle but not weak, kind but not knave, firm but not cold. The kind that allows you to stand tall in storms and still find beauty in the rain. When you learn to guard your peace, you don't just survive, you lead, you inspire, and you rise above in ways that nothing and no one can shake. It's easy to be thankful when everything's perfect. But spiritual power shows up when gratitude meets hardship. When the storm comes, and it always does, the untouchable woman whispers, "Even here, I am blessed." There is something deeply powerful about a person who can still find gratitude when life feels heavy. Gratitude is easy when everything goes right, when the sun shines and the path ahead is clear. But real gratitude, the kind that shapes your soul and strengthens your spirit, shows up in the dark. It's born in those moments when nothing makes sense, when you feel lost, when everything inside you wants to complain or give up. That is where true spiritual maturity begins. When you choose to see light even when surrounded by shadows. In life, pain is not optional. Disappointment is not avoidable. Every person goes through seasons of loss, failure, or uncertainty. But the difference between those who crumble and those who grow stronger is perspective. Gratitude changes that perspective. It doesn't erase pain, but it transforms how you experience it. When you start to give thanks for what remains instead of grieving for what's gone, you shift from being a victim of circumstance to a student of growth. There's a quiet courage in saying thank you when things are breaking. It's not denial, it's strength. Because in those moments, gratitude becomes your anchor. It keeps you steady when everything else feels unstable. You stop asking why this is happening to you and start asking what this season is trying to teach you. Gratitude opens your eyes to lessons hidden inside hardship. You start seeing purpose in pain, meaning in waiting, and growth in every setback. I once met a woman who had lost her business, her home, and her sense of direction all within a year. For most people, that kind of loss would lead to despair. But she decided to start each morning writing down 3 things she was grateful for. Some days it was something as simple as a warm cup of tea or a friend who checked in. Over time, that small practice rewired her entire mindset. Gratitude didn't change her circumstances immediately, but it changed her energy, her clarity, and her peace. Eventually, she built a new business, one more aligned with her values. What saved her wasn't luck or timing. It was the habit of seeing blessings where most people would only see loss. Science even supports what the heart already knows. Studies show that people who regularly practice gratitude have lower stress levels, better sleep, and stronger immune systems. But beyond biology, gratitude builds spiritual resilience. It shifts your focus from scarcity to abundance. You stop measuring your life by what you lack and start appreciating what you already have. That shift alone creates power because gratitude multiplies what it touches. The more thankful you are, the more peace you attract. There's another reason gratitude in darkness is so transformative. When you practice it, you teach yourself to look beyond circumstances. You begin to separate your sense of joy from the external. You realize that peace doesn't depend on what's happening around you. It depends on what's happening within you. Gratitude keeps your heart soft when the world tries to make it hard. It allows you to respond to pain without becoming bitter. And it helps you recognize that even in loss, there is still life, there is still hope. There is still something to hold on to. When you start practicing gratitude during hardship, it also changes how you treat others. You become more compassionate, more patient, more understanding. Because when you've been through dark seasons and learned to say thank you anyway, you stop judging people for their pain. You know what it means to fight invisible battles. Gratitude makes you humble. It reminds you that strength isn't about having it all together. It's about being grateful even when you don't. There's a beautiful irony in how gratitude works. The darker the season, the brighter its light becomes. The moment you start focusing on what's still good, your energy shifts. Your thoughts calm. Your hope revives. Gratitude doesn't erase the night, but it gives you eyes to see the stars. It teaches you that joy doesn't come from what you have, but from what you notice. Every woman who walks through pain with gratitude carries a quiet radiance. You can see it in her eyes, the peace that no hardship could steal, the faith that no failure could destroy. Gratitude gives her the strength to stand in the middle of uncertainty and still trust that there's purpose unfolding. She doesn't pretend everything is fine. She simply chooses to see what's still beautiful, what's still working, what's still worth fighting for. The truth is, anyone can be grateful when life is easy. But being grateful when life is hard, that's sacred. It's the moment when your spirit rises above circumstance, when you start to understand that every challenge has a lesson, every delay has a reason, and every loss can become the foundation for something greater. Gratitude is not a reaction, it's a decision. It's saying, no matter what happens, I will not let darkness define my heart. When you practice gratitude in the darkness, you don't just survive it, you transform it. You begin to carry peace that cannot be taken, faith that cannot be shaken, and strength that doesn't need to be seen to be real. And that is what makes a woman spiritually untouchable. She doesn't wait for light to feel grateful. She becomes the light herself. There's something profoundly spiritual about stillness. The untouchable woman knows when to speak and when to be silent. Silence is not weakness, it's wisdom. There is a kind of strength that rarely gets celebrated, the strength of listening. We often associate power with the ability to speak, to persuade, to lead the conversation. But real wisdom, real connection comes from the ability to listen. The woman who listens more than she speaks carries a presence that others feel immediately. She doesn't need to be the loudest voice in the room because her calmness commands more attention than any noise could. Listening is not just about hearing words. It's about understanding hearts. It's about noticing what's not being said. When you truly listen, you create space for others to be seen, to be valued, to be understood. Most people don't really want advice. They want to feel heard. And when you give someone the gift, you do more than comfort them. You awaken something human in both of you. There's a quiet confidence in those who listen deeply. They're not waiting for their turn to speak. They're not formulating a response while the other person is talking. they're fully present. That kind of attention is rare in a world obsessed with reaction. But presence has power. It builds trust, it strengthens relationships, and it teaches you more about people than any number of words could. The woman who listens more than she speaks doesn't rush to fill silence because she understands that silence isn't empty, it's full of meaning. In stillness, truth often reveals itself. She knows that when she's quiet, she can hear her intuition more clearly. She becomes attuned not just to others, but to herself. Listening is a practice that connects you to both the outer world and your inner wisdom. It's how you discern what deserves your energy and what doesn't. Think about the last time you were in a heated conversation. The urge to defend yourself, to correct, to explain. That's the ego trying to protect itself. But when you choose to listen instead, something shifts. The tension eases. The other person feels safe enough to drop their walls. And in that safety, real understanding begins. Listening can heal what arguing never will. It's not weakness. It's emotional intelligence in action. There's a story about a woman who worked as a counselor for troubled teens. She said that in her first year, she tried to fix everyone's problems. She offered solutions, advice, and strategies, but nothing seemed to change. Then one day, a young girl told her, "You're not really listening. You just want to make me feel better." That sentence changed everything. The counselor stopped trying to fix and started to listen. Really listen. Over time, the same teens who once resisted her began to open up. They didn't need perfection. They needed presence. In daily life, this same principle applies. Listening more than speaking doesn't mean you suppress your voice. It means you speak from a place of understanding rather than reaction. You start to notice that when you listen first, your words carry more weight. People trust you more, not because you have all the answers, but because you've taken the time to understand the question. Listening also deepens your relationship with yourself. When you spend time in quiet reflection, without distractions, without constant noise, you start to hear your own thoughts more clearly. You begin to recognize the voice of intuition that often gets buried under the opinions of others. Some of the most important decisions in life are made not through talking, but through listening to your body, your heart, and your spirit. This habit also changes how you lead. The best leaders, the ones who inspire loyalty and respect, are those who listen first. They don't dominate conversations, they draw others in. They make people feel heard. When you lead from that space, people don't just follow your words, they follow your example. They see calm, empathy, and understanding, and they mirror it back. Listening teaches patience. It teaches humility. It reminds you that you don't have to control every moment or prove every point. Sometimes, silence has more than explanation ever could. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do for someone else is to simply be there without trying to fix or change them. The woman who listens more than she speaks becomes a safe place in a loud world. People trust her because her energy doesn't demand, it invites. Her wisdom grows because she learns from every conversation. Her presence becomes grounding because she's not driven by the need to be heard, but by the desire to understand. And that's what makes her powerful. Not her volume, not her arguments, not her ability to win debates. Her power lies in her awareness, her patience, and her discernment. She listens to understand, not to respond. She listens to connect, not to control. And because of that, her words, when she finally speaks, carry truth, empathy, and grace. In a world where everyone wants to be noticed, she chooses to notice others. In a world where people shout to prove their worth, she finds strength in silence. Listening is not her weakness. It's her superpower. Because when you listen more than you speak, you don't just hear the world, you begin to understand it. And that understanding, that quiet wisdom, is what makes a woman spiritually untouchable. Forgiveness isn't about excusing someone. It's about freeing yourself from their hold. The untouchable woman refuses to carry poison in her heart. She understands that holding on to anger doesn't punish the other person. It imprisons you. In fact, studies show that forgiveness lowers stress, blood pressure, and even improves sleep. But more than that, it opens spiritual flow. Forgiveness is one of the hardest things a person can do, yet it's also one of the most freeing. It sounds simple when spoken out loud, but when someone has deeply hurt you, forgiveness feels like surrender. It feels like letting them off the hook, like saying what they did was okay. But that's not what forgiveness truly is. Forgiveness is not about them at all. It's about you. It's about reclaiming your peace, your energy, your freedom. It's about choosing not to let pain define your future. Every person carries scars from the past, some visible, others buried deep inside. Betrayal, loss, rejection, injustice. These experiences can stay with us long after the moment has passed. When you hold on to anger or resentment, it doesn't stay contained. It leaks into your thoughts, your relationships, your sense of self. You might not even realize it, but unhealed resentment becomes a quiet companion, whispering in your ear and shaping how you see the world. Forgiveness breaks that cycle. It doesn't erase the memory, but it removes the poison. There's a saying that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. That's exactly what unforgiveness does. It eats away at your peace, your focus, your joy. The woman who chooses forgiveness isn't weak, she's wise. She understands that freedom doesn't come from revenge or justification, but from release. She refuses to let someone else's mistake keep her in emotional captivity. Forgiveness doesn't mean you forget what happened. It doesn't mean you invite the person back into your life or ignore boundaries. It means you stop carrying the emotional weight of their actions. You stop replaying the scene in your head. Stop trying to rewrite what's already written. It means you say to yourself, I deserve peace more than I deserve to be right. And that shift changes everything. There's a story of a woman who was betrayed by her closest friend. For years, she replayed every detail in her mind, analyzing where things went wrong, what she should have said, what she should have done differently. And that anger became a part of her identity. It followed her into new friendships, new opportunities, new moments of joy. One day she realized she was still allowing that one act to control her life. So she made a decision, not to excuse it, not to forget it, but to release it. The day she did, she said she felt lighter, as if she had been carrying a heavy stone for years, without knowing it. That's what forgiveness feels like. Studies show that people who forgive live healthier lives. Their stress levels are lower, their blood pressure is steadier, and their immune systems are stronger. But beyond the science, forgiveness restores your emotional balance. It allows you to take your power back. Because when you hold a grudge, you're giving that person control over your emotions. You're letting them occupy space in your heart that could be filled with peace. When you forgive, you're not saying what they did was acceptable. You're saying it no longer has power over you. Forgiveness is an act of courage. It means choosing healing over bitterness, grace over resentment. It means letting go of the desire to see someone punished and trusting that life has its own way of balancing things. It's not about pretending everything is fine. It's about refusing to live chained to what's broken. When you forgive, you stop being defined by what happened to you and start being defined by how you rose from it. In relationships, forgiveness also becomes the bridge that keeps love alive. People will fail you. They will misunderstand, disappoint, and sometimes hurt you unintentionally. If you expect perfection, you'll always live in disappointment. But if you learn to forgive, you allow love, friendship, and connection to grow deeper roots. Forgiveness says, I see your flaws, but I choose peace anyway. That doesn't mean tolerating abuse or staying in unhealthy places. It means learning to release bitterness so you can move forward unburdened. Forgiving yourself is equally important. We often extend more grace to others than we do to ourselves. You might carry guilt for mistakes, missed chances, or words you wish you could take back. But forgiveness must begin with you. When you learn to forgive yourself, you stop fighting your past and start living your present. You accept that you are doing the best you could with the awareness you had then. That realization opens the door to peace. The woman who chooses forgiveness doesn't wait for an apology. She doesn't need closure from others to begin healing. She understands that forgiveness is a personal decision, one that only she can make. She values her peace too much to let bitterness take root. She knows that every moment spent in resentment is a moment stolen from joy. Forgiveness doesn't change the past, but it transforms the future. It allows you to love again, to trust again, to hope again. It takes strength to release the grip of anger, but once you do, you begin to experience freedom that can't be taken away. You become untouchable, not because life stops hurting, but because your heart is no longer held hostage by pain. Choosing forgiveness is choosing yourself. It's choosing peace over pride, healing over hate, freedom over fear. It's the quiet declaration that your spirit is stronger than the wound. And when a woman reaches that point, when she learns to forgive not for them, but for herself, she becomes unstoppable. Her past no longer defines her. Her peace becomes her power. Fear is loud. Faith whispers. And the untouchable woman chooses the whisper. She doesn't wait to see the full staircase. She takes the first step, trusting the one who built it. Because faith isn't about certainty. It's about courage in uncertainty. There comes a point in every person's life when fear and faith stand face to face, and you have to decide which one you will follow. Fear is loud. It shouts all the reasons something could go wrong. It fills your mind with what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. Faith, on the other hand, speaks softly. It doesn't argue. It simply whispers, keep going. The difference between those who stay stuck and those who grow is not the absence of fear. It's the choice to walk by faith even when fear doesn't disappear. To walk by faith means you move forward without having all the answers. It means you trust that the next step will appear even if the whole path is hidden. Fear wants certainty before action. Faith asks for courage before evidence. And this is where the strongest women rise. They don't wait for life to feel safe. They step into the unknown, trusting that something greater will meet them there. In life, fear disguises itself as logic. It tells you to wait until you're ready, until you know for sure, until every condition is perfect. But readiness is a myth. No one is ever truly ready for the moments that change their lives. You grow into readiness by taking the step first. The woman who walks by faith doesn't need to see the full picture. She understands that clarity comes through movement, not hesitation. Every small act of faith rewrites her story because every time she chooses courage over fear, she becomes stronger, wiser, and more grounded. Faith isn't blind optimism. It's not pretending that everything is fine. It's acknowledging that life is uncertain, but choosing to trust anyway. It's believing that even when doors close, something purposeful is happening. There's an old truth that says, when you can't see God's hand, trust His heart. That's what walking by faith looks like. It's knowing that what's meant for you won't miss you, and what's not meant for you will fall away for your protection. Think about all the moments in your life when you were afraid to move, but you did anyway. Maybe you left a job, a relationship, a place that no longer served you. You didn't know how things would turn out, but you took the step, and somewhere along the way, the path unfolded. Looking back, you realized that fear didn't protect you. It paralyzed you. Faith, however, led you forward. Fear creates walls, faith builds bridges. There's a powerful shift that happens when you start trusting more and fearing less. You stop trying to control everything. You stop overthinking every outcome. You start believing that if you do your part, life will meet you halfway. That kind of faith doesn't make life easier, but it gives you peace in the middle of uncertainty. And that peace is worth more than any guarantee. Every woman who walks by faith carries a light that others can feel. She doesn't crumble when things fall apart, because her confidence isn't built on circumstances. It's built on conviction. She knows that challenges don't mean she's lost her way. They're simply part of her growth. She's not fearless, but she refuses to let fear lead. She feels it, acknowledges it, and keeps walking anyway. That's the quiet bravery that sets her apart. There's a story of a woman who dreamed of starting her own business, but kept delaying it for years. She told herself she needed more savings, more knowledge, more security. Then one day she realized fear would always find a new excuse. So she began, uncertain and unprepared, trusting that the skills and resources would come. They did. Not immediately, not easily, but step by step. Looking back, she said the scariest part wasn't the risk. It was the waiting she had mistaken for preparation. That's the power of walking by faith. It transforms waiting into doing, hoping into becoming. Faith doesn't guarantee success, but it guarantees growth. It stretches you, shapes you, and deepens your trust in yourself and in something bigger than you. Fear keeps you focused on what could go wrong. Faith keeps you focused on what could go right. Fear makes you shrink, faith makes you rise. When you live by faith, setbacks don't define you. They refine you. You stop asking why this is happening to me and start asking, what is this trying to teach me? That shift alone can change your life. Faith also builds resilience. When you trust that everything has purpose, you stop seeing difficulties as punishment. You start seeing them as preparation. You begin to recognize that every closed door, every delay, every detour is shaping you for what's ahead. And that belief gives you strength. You become unshakable not because you avoid storms, but because you've learned to walk through them without losing yourself. To walk by faith is to live with a quiet confidence that no matter what happens, you will find your way. It's to move through uncertainty with peace instead of panic. It's to wake up each day with the courage to take the next step even when the outcome is unknown. The woman who lives this way doesn't need validation, control, or perfect conditions. Her security comes from within. Fear will always try to follow you, but it can't lead you unless you hand it the map. When you choose faith, you take the map back. You may still feel afraid, but you walk anyway. And with each step, fear loses its power and faith grows stronger. That's how you build a life rooted in peace instead of panic, in purpose instead of paralysis. The woman who walks by faith becomes spiritually untouchable because her trust is greater than her fear. She doesn't wait for certainty. She creates it by believing in something she cannot yet see. She walks forward not because the path is easy, but because she knows she's guided. And that kind of faith, steady, quiet, unwavering, is the foundation of true strength. The final habit, she doesn't live to be liked. She lives to be aligned. She knows that not everyone will understand her path, and that's okay. Because her value isn't in applause, it's in impact. There comes a time in life when you have to decide what truly matters, being liked or being aligned. The woman who chooses purpose over popularity has made that decision. She understands that the need to be liked is endless, but the desire to live meaningfully gives life direction. She no longer shapes herself to fit into rooms that dim her light. Instead, she builds her life around the values that give her peace. And because of that, she becomes a force that cannot be moved by trends, opinions, or approval. From a young age, we're taught to seek acceptance. We want to be chosen, praised, and noticed. And there's nothing wrong with wanting connection. But somewhere along the way, many of us trade authenticity for acceptance. We start editing ourselves to fit other people's expectations. We silence our truth to avoid disapproval. Yet every time we do that, we drift further from who we really are. The woman who chooses purpose over popularity stops playing that game. She realizes that living for applause will never satisfy the soul. The same people who cheer for you today might criticize you tomorrow, but purpose endures. When you live with purpose, you don't chase attention, you attract alignment. You start waking up each day asking not who will like me, but who will I become if I stay true to what I believe? That single question transforms everything. It frees you from the exhausting need to please everyone. It gives you permission to stand alone if you must. Because the truth is, not everyone will understand your path. And that's okay. It's not meant for them to. Choosing purpose over popularity also means making peace with being misunderstood. When you set boundaries, when you change direction, when you outgrow certain versions of yourself, some people won't get it. They might say you've changed. And they're right, you have. You've stopped living by their expectations and started living by your conviction. Growth always offends comfort. But the cost of staying silent or small just to be liked is far greater than the cost of being misunderstood. Think about every woman who has ever made a real difference in the world. None of them were universally liked. They were questioned, doubted, sometimes even ridiculed. But they stayed anchored to their purpose. They understood that popularity fades quickly, but impact lasts forever. When you choose purpose, your actions come from conviction, not convenience. You stop asking what will make me look good and start asking what will make me useful, what will make me fulfilled, what will make me proud of the person I'm becoming. There's a story of a woman who worked in a corporate job where everyone cared more about image than integrity. Promotions went to those who said the right things, attended the right events, and played politics. She decided she couldn't do it anymore. She left the company, not knowing what would come next, but determined to build something rooted in purpose. It was difficult at first, lonely, uncertain, full of doubt. But as time passed, she realized something. She was finally living in alignment with herself. She no longer needed validation to feel valuable. She was doing work that mattered, and that gave her more peace than any recognition ever could. When you choose purpose, your confidence stops depending on applause. You stop performing and start becoming. You realize that success isn't about how many people notice you. It's about how many lives are better because of you. Purpose gives your life direction, and that direction gives you strength. It anchors you in something bigger than mood, opinion, or popularity. Choosing purpose also teaches you humility. Because purpose isn't about ego, it's about service. It's about using what you have to make a difference, even in quiet ways. When you live with purpose, you stop measuring your worth through comparisons. You don't need to prove anything. You know who you are and why you're here, and that knowledge grounds you even when the world feels uncertain. There's freedom in no longer needing to be liked. You start to understand that not being everyone's cup of tea means you're being authentic. The right people will resonate with your truth. The rest will fall away. And that's how it should be. Popularity makes you fit in. Purpose makes you stand out. One gives you temporary validation. The other gives you lasting fulfillment. Living this way requires courage. There will be moments when you question yourself, when you wonder if you're doing the right thing. But every time you choose purpose over popularity, you strengthen your integrity. You sleep better at night. You stop chasing external noise and start listening to your inner voice. And that voice, once quiet and uncertain, becomes your compass. The woman who chooses purpose Overpopularity doesn't live for the spotlight. She lives for impact. She doesn't measure her success by followers, likes, or praise. She measures it by growth, peace, and authenticity. She knows that at the end of her life, it won't matter how many people approved of her choices. What will matter is whether she lived true to herself and contributed something meaningful. And that's what makes her spiritually untouchable. Because once a woman finds her purpose, no criticism can derail her, no trend can distract her, and no rejection can destroy her. She becomes steady in a world that rewards noise, certain in a culture built on comparison. She doesn't need to be popular to be powerful. Her purpose speaks louder than applause ever could. So to every woman listening, remember this: your strength doesn't come from being loud or liked or perfect. It comes from being rooted in peace, rooted in gratitude, rooted in faith, forgiveness, and purpose. You don't have to prove your worth. You only have to protect it. Because the moment you choose peace over pressure, truth over noise, and purpose over approval, you rise into a power that the world can't touch. That's what makes you spiritually untouchable.